Now it's time for the O'Hara News and Editorial. This is the show that brings you news through the lens of men's rights activism. Robert O'Hara and co-host James Huff bring you current events and important guests who will share their insights as well. We also invite the most important people to share their thoughts and experiences here on the One You. This show invites callers to discuss the events of the week with the hosts and our guests. We want your involvement. So listen, call in, and experience the one show that gives it to you straight in a way no other media outlet will. Let's begin the O'Hara News and Editorial.
Tonight, we have two very special guests on the O'Hara News and Editorial. Sage Gerard, the coordinator of the successful KSU Men conference, and Greg Patnude, who is going to face a judge in Virginia Beach on Thursday for failure to pay over $100,000 in child support for children who are fully grown. Because we're having two guests on the show, we will be altering the format to omit the news. However, we will make mention of the two very important elections going on in Maine and North Dakota involving the removal of corrupt prosecutors and shared parenting initiatives. Gerard pulled off a landmark achievement at Kennesaw State University in Georgia this weekend with the first ever men's conference on the university campus in the U.S., helping to firmly establish a men's rights presence in America's schools. Patnude has courageously decided to face charges of failure to pay $130,000 in child support arrears for children now in their late 20s. He aims to be a figure representing the gross injustice of our family law system. And we're back with another edition of the O'Hara News and Editorial for this Tuesday, November 4th, 2014. And this is a very, very special show. We have two great guests on tonight. First of all, we have Sage Gerard on for the first half of the show. And for the second half of the show, we have Greg Patnude, who is going to face charges for failure to pay over $100,000 in child support arrears for children that are well into their late 20s. I'm sure that most listeners listening right now have read the story about Greg Patnude. I think it's an important case. It's going to be heard in Virginia Beach on Thursday. Very important case about the corruption of the child support system, the entire family law system. But our first guest, Sage Gerard, who has pulled off the very first successful MHRM conference on a American university campus at Kennesaw State University in Georgia. It was a blazing success. We had, Sage had great speakers down there. Paul Elam showed up. Jonathan Taylor showed up. Girl Ice What showed up. Janice Fiamingo showed up. Did Janice Fiamingo show up? Did she?
Yeah, she did.
Okay,
yes,
she. Okay, good. Sage, thanks for coming on the show. This was a great achievement, and I wish I was there. I wish I could have been there. I'm sorry I couldn't have been there, but I just personally want to tell you kudos for what you did. This was really a great deal. It was a very important event, and welcome to the show. And tell us how you're doing after all this, because I know you're probably beat. It was a long weekend for you.
This is no doubt a cathartic moment. But thank you for having me on the show, and I wish you could have been there as well. It's been very exhausting. All the speakers were exhausted as well. Tell me they each took about 12 hours to sleep each. But no, there's so much I could cover. But honestly, I'd be talking for over an hour at this moment if I tried.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you some pointed questions. And by the way, we would like callers to call in because we are omitting the news section of our show. So, James, if you could give the call-in number, that would be great. So callers can call in as well before I ask Sage any questions, and then I'll proceed to Sage.
Sure. The number is 214-272-0408. I'll say that again. The number is 214-272-0408.
Please call in, everybody. That would be great. Sage will be happy to take your questions, as will both James and I. We only have Sage for about 45 minutes now, so we got to make this count. So, to start, how did things go? Because I haven't really read or seen. I haven't seen any footage. I haven't really read anything about it. As far as the operations of the conference, how did things go? What kind of resistance did you come across? I know this is a pretty broad question. I'll let you answer it the way you want to. I might interject with some questions. But what kind of resistance did you come across, and what kind of obstacles did you come across? Were there people on campus that were interfering with things, or was it like just basic like logistical things, or both? Tell us how things played out as far as the actual organization and implementation of the conference.
Well, the conference went really beautifully once we actually took care of things. And of course, the reason most people have not seen any footage or anything like that from the conference is because there's a lot of it. And of course, in the event that somebody, we all have to just kind of, it's just going to take a lot of processing time. We didn't have any live streaming or anything like that. So just bear with me while I get the composition and editing done, and then we can go ahead and get that published. But regarding the obstacles leading up to the conference, there was a remarkable effort by the part of faculty in the Interdisciplinary Studies Department, which is where the Gender Studies program is housed. They've made several attempts on my character, several attempts at character assassination in the form of police reports and a letter from the legal division, which made me pretty frightened for my job and, my future, because these are people that are abusing their apparent credibility as a means to just take on somebody they just have a political disagreement with. Then there's the students. The students were nowhere near as bad. In fact, there was a demonstration. I posted a little Google Plus album on this in images, where this organization called KSU Yes Body had wanted to protest a Voice for Men's presence on campus. And so they did a little GoFundMe fundraiser, which I donated to because I wanted them to protest. I thought the protest was misguided, but I wanted them to have it. And I looked at the protest, and even though that the philosophy behind it was, again, misguided, it was peaceful, which is certainly much more, I could say. That's definitely points to them, considering, we could compare them to the University of Toronto or other feminists that are willing to blockade doors and beat you over the head. But the faculty members were easily the biggest obstacle. And I did an open records request and looked at the things they've been saying to one another. And basically, they've been having meetings about KSUM. They called us a problem on campus. And they were basically keeping track of how many advisors we had and if the conference was still on. And the tone made it suggest as if they were checking to see, I guess you could call it their own progress, because it sounded like they were trying to hurt KSUM, and they have hurt KSUM leading up to the conference. So those obstacles were just largely a pattern of misconduct from a single department on campus, and that was like the major obstacle. And in the conference itself, it's very interesting because one of the co-presidents of KSU Yes Body actually stood up and issued me a public apology on behalf of the KSU administration and faculty, which of course she can't actually do. But it was interesting to see a feminist apologizing. It really was, because it kind of was a watershed moment there, right? And there's more I could say about that, but it in essence just told me that, the KSUM was basically going to win, because the students are figuring out that they're not going to be able to, just flat out take it on. And now the faculty's ending up looking like they're isolated. It's not just students and faculty anymore. Now it's faculty just basically standing there like the Wizard of Oz after the curtain's been pulled.
If you could, just spend a moment or two itemizing these actions by the administration and or the faculty to try to make things difficult for KSMU men.
Sure.
Were there emails? Were there? I know you talked about it just now, but if you get into bigger detail, were there emails? Were there phone calls? Were there did your academic advisor call you up and say, "Hey, stop doing this. Your future is going to be screwed up," or whatever? I don't know. Tell me what happened.
Okay, so in essence, there was rather a lack of action on the part of the administration, and that was a problem in and of itself. But when it comes to the Interdisciplinary Studies Department, there have been emails, there have been police reports, and there have been University System of Georgia hotline allegations that culminated in a letter addressed to me from the legal division of the university.
What kind of police force are we talking about?
And I can actually pull them up right now if you bear with me. There's these are from the interdisciplinary study stuff, and of course I can't share any personally identifying information due to that's obvious.
Did somebody accuse you of trying to harass them or something like that?
But it actually goes even further. One of them, I want to go to my favorite one. I don't want to mention the name here, but the complainant stated, quote, "She has seen the cartoons, video, and blogs online that I produced and believes Gerard demonstrates having violent fantasies about hurting and murdering women." The complainant also believes Gerard is interested in challenging/silencing all women and gender programs and educational activities on campus. That's my favorite part. That's...
My God, that's crazy. These people are desperate, aren't they? I mean, they really are.
Well, they basically make me sound like I'm out on a crusade to not only go out and murder people, but also to silence all educational activities on campus. What kind of power do these people think I have? It's amazing. The police report.
They're frightened.
Right. The police report even says that a security escort was provided for the complainant. And, I've done nothing to give these people any justification for their fears. These are, excuse me, all of these reports, the fact that I have them means that the cases were closed. That's what makes them available for public request. And I've talked to the detectives. They said they found no information because there was no information to find, and the legal division had reached the same conclusion. When I got USG hotline allegations, which cited my posting of a Voice for Men stickers in public restrooms, that was 19-month-old event, and they used that to say that again I had these violent fantasies. And the legal division contacted me and said, we don't see anything we can use to discipline you. Just try not to say things that could get you construed to be such a horrible person, you big meanie. That's kind of the tone of it all. And but of course this scared me because not only are these allegations heavy, but I also got my I work at KSU. I work in the Information Systems Department. And that's totally, isolated and independent from anything I do with men's rights advocacy. And my supervisors are contacting me saying, "Sage, what the hell is going on? We're getting people calling us saying that, you're doing all this shit." And I was worried about my job. I was worried about, what could happen after, if something were to happen to my job, what would that do to my career in the future? Things of that nature. And thankfully, I've had a lot of people that were vouching for me, and that really helped, but that didn't stop them from continuing to try, the interdisciplinary studies people, from trying to make additional attacks. What makes this, where's that music coming from?
Oh, I'm sorry, I was like, that was a friend of my calling. Sorry about that.
No, that's fine. Yeah. But I was almost done anyway. But basically, that all really freaked me out. And but thankfully, the KSU police department and the legal division found there wasn't anything they could use to discipline me. But the administration, even though I've been letting the Dean of Student Success know several times, hey, look, here's some additional documentation showing that this is not just an isolated incident. All these same things are coming from one department. All these same things are coming from the same people. Are you going to stop this? And basically, it just, I don't know. I mean, for some reason, it just wasn't considered actionable, I suppose.
Okay, this came from the interdisciplinary department, right?
Interdisciplinary Studies Department, yes.
Yeah, okay. See, this is a degree that most people can get if they go to a 4-year school, a degree in interdisciplinary studies. And I wanted to touch on this just briefly. Whenever you go to a quote interdisciplinary studies class, it is indoctrination into feminist ideology, almost always. No doubt about it. And most schools require that you go to a, quote, interdisciplinary studies 200 or 300 level class before you even graduate. And these are the people, these are so-called academics. These are people who put them in place in our school system as, quote, academics that clearly have an agenda. And if you disagree with anything that they say, they're going to come after your ass academically if they can, or administratively if they can. So they went after you, obviously.
Yes. Well, yes, that much is very clear to me at this point.
Yeah, and this has been going on for at least 15, 20 years now. I mean, I remember when I was getting my undergraduate degree, you had to take an interdisciplinary studies class before you graduated before you get your 2 degree at a community college, and certainly before you got your 4-year degree at any state school, you had to go through one of these classes, or you had a list of classes you could choose from, and almost all of them were basically they were ideologically driven curriculums of study, where there was a reading list that you had to read and you had to write on, and you had to come to a certain conclusion about the material if you were to get an A. And everybody knew this. And if you went against what these people said, you didn't pass the class and you didn't graduate from school. Is that true at Kennesaw State University, where if you don't go along with the party line, you won't graduate from college?
Well, I don't know. I mean, all I can tell you is that anything that you can find in one of these gender studies or interdisciplinary studies classes is no doubt a center for indoctrination, because I've looked at their reading list. It's just uniformly feminist.
Oh, absolutely.
It's basically horizontal integration. Now, I'm a computer science major, and since I'm in the hard sciences, I don't have to encounter that same 3,000, 4,000 level ISD class. But I have encountered social issues classes and honors colloquiums that were basically along those lines, and you can imagine that they loved me, but they those ended up being pass-fail courses, meaning that there's not a letter grade. If I basically fulfilled the minimal criteria, I just passed. I just got the S and I moved on. But if so I didn't have that.
And
situation.
It didn't add or subtract your GDP. It was there.
Well, those were again.
I'm sorry, your grade point level. It just didn't.
These were honors colloquium classes, which means that if you pass them, they get counted toward your success of finishing the requirements for the honors program. But it's not. Yeah, it's not related to your primary degree program.
Right.
I do of course have another friend who is experiencing what you're describing though, and he's going to Georgia State, and he was telling me that he did end up suffering grade point deductions because his article was not in complete agreement with the citations that he was provided to write about. So it was it's irritating as hell. Now one thing I can tell you is I used to go to Georgia State as well. I only went for one semester. Then I decided that school wasn't for me. And I went to a global politics class. And in that global politics class, I disagreed with one of those faulty statistics that was being presented. I think it was the one where they said women do 2/3 of the world's work for 10% of the income. Remember that one? Yeah, they said that, and then somebody, got angry and like flipped a pencil or something, and she's like, I can't believe all this. And I said to her, well, look, I mean, men suffer their own stuff too, and it ended up leading one thing to another, and the class was so infuriated with me that I had some people even follow me outside the class, basically just insulting my intelligence. So it was not a pretty situation. So yeah, I mean, to say that it's an indoctrination center is an understatement. It's either you agree or you don't, and if you don't agree, you're not part of the church, and it's a dark ages situation.
Gotcha. Back to the conference. Let's. I'm sorry. I want to ask you how many. Let's get some of the basics about the conference. How many speakers were there? How many people showed up? What kind of reaction was there from the school? Security staff? Was there any protesters? Were there any protesters? What happened during the conference? If you could describe to us the tone of the conference and whether or not it resonated with people who actually came to the conference who were actually curious about the issues.
We actually, it went really, really well. Security was remarkably helpful and professional, and they did everything they were supposed to do. Right. The thing that was really helpful was I let the security know about what happened in the Canadian universities way in advance. And the detective that came actually was even aware about the fact that some fire alarms might be false alarms. And he was basically going to set things up such that if a fire alarm was pulled and it was found to be fake, we could get back to the conference with very minimal, interruption.
Oh, wow.
So it was that's how good it was. And, the security guard posted there was just remarkably friendly, professional, and cool, and we had a great time. Now, the tone of the conference, there were some tense moments, but if there was and one of the things that was really interesting was they had basically a feminist table, meaning that all the feminists that came to the conference pretty much congregated together in one table in the venue. And you could tell it was them because they were the only table not clapping. They were the only table that was just basically rolling their eyes, sighing, or just demonstrating very I don't want to be here body language whenever Karen or Janice open their mouths, right? So it's basically, this is and I mentioned Karen and Janice because they responded most strongly to them. And Karen in particular freaked them out.
How do they respond to Karen and Janice? Because those two women really freak feminists out. They really, really do. And I think they actually. I'm sorry. Go ahead. But go ahead.
Well, the body language I was referring to became very pronounced when Karen was speaking. It got to the point where Karen.
I wish I was there. I was there.
Actually, Karen got to the point where she said, "I see you rolling your eyes." Like she was like, "I see what you're doing." Like it was great, and she ended up commenting on the art demonstration, which was the only thing that could be called a protest. And she shoved her boots so far up the asses of the organizers that they ended up they were like, "What do we do?" And they ended up commenting on that after the speeches with an interview with the KSU student media. So the overall tone was that there were a lot of MRA supporters there. It was a predominantly MRA event. There was just no doubt about it.
Okay.
And it was there was one table of feminists, and one thing I've mentioned even on the podium was I'm very happy that they showed up because I'm happy that they would show up regardless and listen and participate. Right, like that was a good thing.
Right. I talked with Jack about this yesterday. He said, and I think he was talking about the table that you were talking about, the feminists, but he described it as these people that just sat there quietly, and his impression was that they were administrators. They were people that were just sort of there to gather information. They didn't react to what was going on. Was this a group that was separate from the feminist table, or what?
I don't No, I haven't gotten. I didn't get that same impression.
Okay, Jack has it. I hope he calls in because I'd like to have him talk about.
Well,
that.
it was there were a couple of older women there that wouldn't surprise me if they were on faculty, but I didn't get the impression that they were administrators.
Okay.
If they were administrators, they would have been decorated with the uniform or the tags that would have conveyed as such.
Okay.
The administrators here on KSU are much more formal looking at all times, and they didn't look that formal.
So there were administrators there.
No. I'm saying that the administrators look very formal, and on top of that, they have administrators for public universities are subjected to a much more political heat. So they're not as like.
I know. I've been there before. That's why I'm asking you about this. I used to.
No, I did not see any administrators there. I did not. I mean, they would have. I think it was unlikely that they ever would have come anyway. The most that we could have gotten in that respect would be administrators from maybe a department, like a department chair. But the only department chair I could think of that's relevant to this filed a police report and is trying to stay the hell away from me. So that's I don't think there was any administrators.
Okay. James, do we have any callers?
No, unfortunately, we do not have any callers. You'll know as soon as I do if we do, man. Because
okay, cool. Let's give out the phone number again. It's sorry,
give me just a second here. All right. 214-272-0408.
Please call in. This is a very good show. It was a very good event this past weekend. I think this is, I know that most of the exposure this show is going to be on YouTube and whatnot.
Now we've got a caller.
Okay.
Caller, welcome to the show.
Hey, guys. It's Iron John calling.
John, what's up, brother?
Hey, Bob, and hello to Sage and James as well.
Hi.
Sage, I had a question for you. It sounds like you had a very successful event, and you've accomplished a lot. I don't mean to be too demanding, but what are your plans now for KSUM?
The plans now are really varied. One thing that Karen brought up during the conference was the Blue Ribbon campaign to raise awareness for male cancers. I want to get the KSUM to participate more in that, not only in spreading information, but if possible, do a fundraiser to donate to organizations that are working toward treatments to that effect. We also have a new administration for the officers. Nobody has expressed interest in becoming a president, so I'm going to serve as president for the time being. But we have 3 new officers, and we're now moving forward on writing a formal proposal to get a more equitable self-defense course. We have plans for a men's center, working with the Assistant Dean Bob Maddox later on in 2015. And I want to see a established network for referrals, such as finding attorneys and counselors that can be helpful to men in the local community, and for establishing a more effective lobbying and journalism effort on campus. KSUM is a system now. Like, it's too big for it to just be a social club. It's gotten a lot of donors, it's gotten a lot of supporters, and I am wanting to see it become a element on campus that it can survive on its own. And it looks like we're seeing that.
Interesting. Do you think that KSUM will ever expand beyond just this university? Do you see it growing in a regional fashion or perhaps even national?
I do, actually. In that case, of course, it would need to break away from the Kennesaw State University administration and become independent, in which case that's excellent. It's not something I can see happening in the very near future, but I can see it happening if the growth continues.
Interesting. What would you say some of your greatest challenges to growth will be in the not only in the immediate future, but in the I suppose the longer term?
Well, the idea would be to create a model that could continue to keep the revenue streams up for donations such that we can continue operations, since of course in order for us to do the things that we do in terms of the missions, that all costs money. And in the event that we run out of money, we do need to have more working funds to make sure we can keep doing our jobs. And it's just a matter of how do we do that across administrations. We just haven't been around long enough to make that, to really know that. But I do know that we do have a very strong community, and as a result of that, I think that even if we were to fall on hard times in that respect, we have the creativity and the means to actually solve problems anyway. So I'm not too horribly worried about it.
Okay, so I wanted to interject here. Sage, do you think that the KSUM model, do you want to present this as a model as to how men's groups on college campuses should be, or just as a template for people if they want to
that was the idea since the beginning. I mean,
since the beginning. Okay, right.
Yeah, I mean, the idea was how do we make men's rights into an actual functioning system? It's not enough to do commentary. It's not enough to do It's not enough to do any of that. You have to have a system at the end of the day. And if you can build a system that can survive in the culture that we're looking at, then we end up with basically men's rights in action. And if we have men's rights in action, then society's only going to get better from this point on, right? So it's having a model that we can replicate means that it would spread all over the nation. That there's nothing but good that could come from that in my mind at this point.
Yeah. Good. I'm sorry, John. Go ahead.
Sage. Oh, thank you, Bob. Sage, for all the MRAs and MHRAs and everyone else involved in the men's movement listening, what would you say were some of the most valuable lessons that you've learned in putting this conference together?
Probably that universities don't give a rat's ass about you. They
really
they don't give a damn about your education. They don't give a damn about anything. They are there as a service provider, that they do their own thing. And if you are not politically fashionable, it's easier for them to go with whatever status quo is there than it is to help facilitate your capacity to question the system, which is what a university should do in theory, but they don't care about that. They just don't. Just flat out fucking don't. And so what I've learned from that is you have to find a way to assert yourself politically and dodge whatever they throw at you as a means to keep things going the way they'd like it to go.
Sounds like quite a challenging environment. Do you have any advice for people out there who might want to replicate what you're doing?
Record absolutely every fucking thing you do. What I was actually thinking, seriously considering learning electronics and robotics just so I can build a little helicopter drone with a camera on it to follow me around. I'm dead serious. I'm dead
with a
serious.
Shotgun mic, to record verbally everything that you hear. And
no,
say.
I mean, I kept my backpack. I got one of those Swiss Army backpacks, and it fits my audio recorder perfectly. And nice. I keep it running at all times. I keep a record. And if somebody messes with me, which they will, I want to have that record, because that recorder will save your ass. There is no question about it.
Oh, because they will come after you. They
yes.
will lie about you. They will do this. They will lie about you. They will try to frame you. That's their MO. That is their weapon. That is what these people do. And that's not being paranoid. That's not being like
that is
a fact. If you're going to engage in this type of activism, you have to record at all times.
Yes, it's not a tinfoil hat thing by any stretch of the imagination. Not at all. I mean, just in the last few months, I've gathered like just a tremendous amount of audio just for my own protection, and I've even stated this publicly in a debate I had recently. Look, I mean, folks, I'm terrified of what these faculty are going to do to me. I have to keep these records. It's basically for crime prevention purposes.
Yeah, I certainly agree. Now, there's obviously a lot of fear, and that's absolutely understandable, Sage, but there has to be something good too. Is there something that you're most proud of, or that you enjoyed the most about putting all of this together that you'd like to share?
Yes. some KSUM members are coming out of their shells, as in they're okay publicly stating their names. That is the most rewarding aspect of this in my mind, because now I've always been dealing with a problem where KSUM members will come up and they say, you know what, I love what you're doing, I believe in what you're doing, but I don't know if I should be seen with you. That's the kind of attitude they show.
Yeah.
So but now that things have been picking up, and I've been taking a lot of shotgun blast to the face, and people are basically seeing that I'm okay, they're also starting to come out and say, well, wait a minute, this is bullshit. I don't like that my university is like this. So I've had we have our secretary, Stacey Evans. He's come out. He's the first other KSUM member to come out and go public. He's and now with our new officer team, I don't know how many of them wish to go public quite yet, but they have been revealing their names in student media, which is a step. I just don't know if I would want to broadcast any further than that. That I'm letting them decide how, I'm letting them determine their own exposure. But they're coming out.
Certainly,
they're coming out.
That's good.
Yeah.
As a result
Sage,
of this,
I'm sorry, I just want to tell you, Sage, that's what makes you a leader in this movement. This whole thing of stigmatization, and people like yourself, a young man like yourself, who, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Iron John, but I did want to say this to Sage. You're worried. Of course, you're worried about your future, and you have a lot at stake because you are a young man who's just about to graduate from school. But this is what makes you a leader. You're someone who's willing to stick their neck out and do something and say something that might be unpopular. But once you start doing that, other people will say, you know what? I agree with this guy saying, and I'm gonna kind of like listen. First of all, listen to him, and then join a cause. And I think this is a very, very important concept in activism.
I know that this might not seem immediately relevant at first, but it's also something that I am still proud of. The female membership of KSUM has also been spiking. It's more female members are joining in, and this is wonderful because, again, the allegations that we are, basically out to hurt all women, not only is nonsense, but it's also showing that there are, we are basically getting a share of honey badgers now, and that's been very rewarding, and they're extremely bright people, and I think it's going to really start to make people have that level of cognitive dissonance. Like, wait a minute, they're misogynist, but they include women. They get that double think going on, and once they're kind of stunned with that, it kind of makes it easier for us to keep going with operations without additional accusations. So that's a wonderful thing.
Go ahead, John.
Yeah, it certainly sounds okay. Thank you, Bob. Well, you've come a long way very quickly, Sage. You've probably learned a lot. Do you think you'll do anything different now after this conference because of the stuff you've experienced and learned?
As in, are you asking if there's anything I do differently if I had to do it again?
Sure, something like that, I suppose.
The only thing, actually, not really. I mean, if I were to rewind, I probably would have done some of the same stuff I've done anyway. I mean, I would have researched context, I acted on context, and said something that I believed was right. I do know that a lot of the bullshit I've been experiencing was culminated from people spreading rumors about KSUM, and a lot of that seemed to start from people drawing that link between A Voice for Men and that allegation by Arthur Goldwag, who contributed to the SPLC. I think that a lot of that drama we faced would have been avoided if AVFM was not as visible of a sponsor. But I don't want to say that as if I was, in any way regretting my AVFM sponsorship, because I'm totally, totally proud of it. I would say to answer your question directly, no, I probably would not have done anything differently. I mean, I was still proud of the AVFM stuff. I still would have been saying a lot of the stuff I'm still saying now. So, I mean, this isn't to say I haven't learned anything. It's just like what we did worked. So why would I want to do something different?
That whole SPLC thing, and actually this is quite an important thing, because the reason the SPLC did what they did, the reason that Arthur Goldwag did what he did, was to supply our opponents with a rhetorical weapon. But that rhetorical weapon is increasingly being rightfully perceived as just that, a rhetorical weapon that is, in fact, false. Mm-hmm. We are not a hate group. The reason why the SPLC wrote that hit piece on us, they never classified us as a hate group. The reason the SPLC wrote that hit piece, the reason that Arthur Goldwag wrote that hit piece against us, was almost certainly as a direct result of the publication of the RadFem Hub article that me and James and other people worked on regarding the exposure of the RadFem Hub people, and they are the most hateful, fucked up people on the face of the planet. These people are crazy, and it's important to understand that, and I think it's important to point that out. That's the reason why the SPLC targeted us in the first place, because these people actually gave the SPLC money, and that's why people in the press and in academia point us out. They reference the SPLC thing in regards to A Voice for Men. It's important to point that out, that every single time someone says, "Oh, the SPLC said you guys were a hate movement," it's like, hey, listen, the only reason the SPLC went after us in the first place is because this real hate movement got their, it got called out on their hateful bullshit, and they gave money to the SPLC to trash mouth AVFM. I think that's important.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that, because during the time that I was getting ready for a debate with Brian Klein on KSU, he sent me an email letting me know that a feminist actually tried to offer him money as a means to go out and hire a moderator of her choosing.
Right.
Yep. Well, folks, I actually have to get going in just a few minutes.
Yeah, sure. No,
but is there anything that we could cover in just these last few minutes? Any last questions?
Anything you want to say, Sage? Anything you want to say in the last few minutes? It's all you.
Well, all I can say at this moment is that KSU Men is going to be having its officer election in the next few days. And as I stated before, the president's seat is still perceived as really, a hot seat, so no one really wants to touch it. So I'm going to be still there. Unless somebody steps forward and really shows that they're able to handle it. And then there's we got 3 new officers, and we have just a really full-bodied administration that is now fully prepared to take on new functions, administrative correspondence, digital media direction, and all sorts of new things. And we now have the capacity to, I think, lobby the administration on KSU in a whole new light. And folks, this is, men's rights is on campus now. Like, this isn't just, us trying to do little creative protests anymore. This is a bona fide system. It's here.
Sage, thank you so much for everything that you have done. I think that you are the right man at the right time to do what needs to be done, and I'm so grateful that you have stepped up and done activism on a school level, because this arena, the academic arena, the university arena, really is important. It's where we as a society purport to educate our youth, or to educate anybody who wants to go and learn something. And it's important to call out ideologues on college campuses and say, listen, you're an ideologue. You're not about truth. You're not about you have this narrative. And you have called these people out, and you have firmly established presence, men's rights presence in our nation's school system, and I want to applaud you.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
There is one more note, if you don't mind.
Sure.
When KSUM turns 1 year old in 2 days, we gain one new privilege. KSU offers new privileges to student organizations depending on how long they last. And one of the things that we gain is access to a dedicated cubicle office space. We also gain the ability to petition a committee for funding, which means that this might be the first time that leading up in the future that a men's rights organization can request government funding and get it.
Very important. Because if for nothing else but for the fight, because once that starts happening,
well, but then at that point we're starting to dip our hands into the same pot that feminists have been enjoying digging their hands in. So that's, I don't know what's going to happen then, but you better believe I'm going to be filing a request.
Okay, Sage, it's now 9:45. I know you got to get out of here.
Thank you.
But again, thank you so much for everything. And I wish I was there, and I love you, brother. And I just want to, I'm really looking forward to hearing everything about the conference in the next couple of days as it gets published on IVFM.
Thank you so much for having me. And
sure.
I'm really, really excited. And I do know for a fact that, at first I thought that KSUM was just going to be an experiment that had a very high chance of failure, but now it looks like it's staying, and it's not going to go away anytime soon.
Good. It's because of you, Sage.
No, it's because of the community that's making KSUM possible. It's not just me.
Well, I want to give you your due credit. So.
Well, thank you so much.
Absolutely. James, let's go to a music break, and we'll have Greg Patnude on after the break.
Catch y'all later, folks.
And we are back with the second half of this, the November 4th, 2014 edition of the O'Hara News and Editorial. And we just got done with our segment with Sage Gerard, a great achievement he pulled off there at Kennesaw State University. And now we have with us Greg Patnude, a man who has up until now been a fugitive from injustice, as he calls it, for failure to pay child support of, right now, what it stands as $130,000 for children that are now in their late 20s to a woman who has been paid all the child support she is owed, or what the law says she is owed. But nonetheless, this guy is still facing this arrearages, as they call it, and he is going to face the court on Thursday. And we don't know whether or not he's going to jail or not, but we do know one thing: we got a guy showing up for the fight. So, Mr. Patnude, thanks for joining us tonight.
Yeah. Hey,
great.
Thanks for having me, Robert. It's good to speak with you.
Great, always good to speak with you. So. On Thursday, just to story for our listeners, you were hit with an order to pay over $1 million in child support.
Well, it wasn't.
Go ahead, please tell us.
Yeah, it wasn't. That wasn't really an order, Robert. There's a warrant for contempt of court for me in Virginia.
Right. Okay.
And they faxed that over to the Auburn Police Department where I lived in Washington State. They faxed a copy of that warrant over for it's a 3-year-old warrant for contempt of court, and they wrote on the front of it in handwriting that I owed $1,052,000 in child support.
Oh, they wrote it in handwriting. Okay. They didn't actually like email it to you or anything like that. They wrote it in handwriting. Okay.
Yeah, so they're enhancing a warrant. It is what it is. I call it an enhancement or a refinement. Right?
Okay.
And there was actually 2 warrants. The second warrant said I owed $104,300. So they're basically calling my local police department, saying, hey, go look him up. We're doing an address verification. But if you find him at his house, pick him up because we've got warrants and we will extradite him. And here's the warrants, by the way. So we'll just go ahead and fax them to you. I mean, this doesn't come through NCIS or the normal criminal systems, right? This is the child support officer facilitating my arrest.
Right.
And enhancing the warrants to make me look like a really bad person. And
right.
And what it does is it makes it look like felony child support, which not every state has felony child support. Some states it's a misdemeanor. In fact, in Virginia, it's a misdemeanor. In some states, like Idaho, it is a felony if it exceeds $5,000. So what these enhancements do is they get people's attention. Police officers see these incoming faxes. It says the guy is a horrible criminal, owes $1 million in child support, and we got to go get him. So they send the SWAT team out. That happened to me on March 18th. Yeah.
Jesus. So, okay, what was they hyped up this whole, you're delinquent child support for arrearages that were actually pretty small, and for children that are now well into their late 20s. And they hyped it up to the extent where they actually sent the SWAT team out to get you. And that makes you look even that much worse. So now you're in a bigger pickle. Is that so? It's kind of like a big theatrical show that they're putting on.
It is. They're staging everything and setting everything up, and I want to talk to that when we get a chance. Sage was talking about the same kind of thing, where they're going for the character assassination, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Because he's fighting back. So they try to pre-assassinate him. Well, this is a way of pre-assassinating any defense and basically try to preempting any possible defense that you may have. They criminalize you, and it starts, very early in the child support enforcement cycle. It starts the day the custodial parents fills out a complaint, files a complaint. Yep, from that point on, it becomes adversarial, and the non-custodial parent is going to be assassinated.
Right.
And that's what the system is designed to do.
That's part of the system. They actually do this. When someone files a
You're gonna love this.
Yeah, they must assassinate the character of the person, the non-custodial person, because it's the only way they can make them a slave. Because once you do that, it justifies them making you a slave. A wage slave.
They have hired special research groups, bunch of people with PhDs, right, from the colleges coming to do studies, and they do research and they test out new procedures and policies and find ways to basically hook people up, and they're trying to connect the courts and with driver's licenses and the local police. And your debit card, even your banking account. I mean, they're finding ways to connect all these things. And so what we have is basically a system that's like Big Brother. They can practically watch your every move. They seize your assets. They can get your driver's license revoked. You know, all kinds of things that aren't even related. I mean, we know all these things, but they are actively finding ways to connect, new ways to connect these things. I've got a 115-page report that I found in the Virginia archives. Right. Some crazy stuff. They are working really hard to find ways to assassinate your character, and they're getting good at it.
Well, it's interesting that you're talking about this because. This whole fraudulent child support system has been going on now for decades. This idea that a non-custodial parent, almost always the father, and the reason it's almost always the father is because he's the guy who's making the money, because women do not choose to have children with men who make less money than they do. That's what it comes down to. So what happens is we have this system that goes after the person that earns the most money, and then we insert an incentive for the courts to make money out of collecting money by matching funds through federal through federal taxes being paid into this system, and this obviously is a conflict of interest, and there's no accountability on the custodial parent's end as to how this money is spent. So the whole thing's crooked, and there's the non-custodial parent has no rights to see their children, or no rights to say, hey, why is this money being spent on shoes and cars and not on my children? So the thing is in order to make someone a wage slave, they have to do character assassination. They have to demonize the person that they are turning into a slave.
Well, it gets better. Not only do they demonize the non-custodial parent and run them through the machine, try to assassinate your character, this whole system is adversarial from the very start. You have to lawyer up now in family court. I just shelled out my very last $3,500 to hire an attorney. Right? And
you had to do it because you would be toast if you didn't.
Well, I'm probably going to walk into the courtroom and fire him right there on the fucking spot and go pro se anyway. There's a good chance I'm going to do that because he wants to take a totally different tact. And, there's a lot of broken legal issues and things that they have done that are completely illegal, right? In fabricating a case against me. Now, I need to back up a little bit on the case. I actually owe $0 in child support. And $0, my arrears balance is $0. Okay, I want to clarify that. My kids are 27 and 28, and they both have college degrees and are self-sufficient and self-supporting. My ex-wife thinks they can squeeze another $125,000 out of me now that the bill's paid off, and that's what it is, man. The money's drying up. She's been living on the gravy train. I've been paying a great. Yep. The money's gone. The money's dried up. I'm not paying another dime, no matter what happens. no matter what happens in court on Thursday, I'm done paying child support. I'm done because I don't have children.
Yeah.
I don't have children.
Yeah. You have offspring that are adults now, but you don't have children anymore, so why the fuck should you have to pay a single dime to another individual that just happened to be the mother of your children, who has no accountability how this money is going to be spent, and she's using it basically as a retirement plan. And that's obviously what's going on here, and the courts are enabling her to do this.
Well, it's worse than just enabling. It's not just enabling her to do this because, obviously it's a misandric court, right? The court was presided, the Chief Justice for the last 7 years or something like that, or however long they elect him. Out of the 7 judges in the Virginia Beach Juvenile Domestic Relation Court, 6 of them are women.
Right.
Okay? The other thing is it's a business improvement district at the same time. All the money they import, they go out after these guys, and we bring all this money into the community that the mothers spend. Right, so there's an incentive for the courts to do this right there. There's a community incentive and a local city and county government's incentive that brings money into the community.
Right.
Right. All that support money gets spent in the grocery stores and in the department stores, all that.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's all about a transfer of wealth from the earning parent. Almost always a man. 99.98% of the time, it's a guy like yourself who is a earner. You are a productive individual. It's about bleeding you dry simply because you're productive, and this other person is not. And now we have a situation where she wants some more money for her retirement, so she doesn't have to work. So now you have to be a slave for the rest of your life. Even though the children are grown, that's the absurdity of the whole situation.
Like I said, I'm done. The kids are grown up, right?
Yeah.
They don't need child support. They're not children. They're about, they're at the point in their lives where they're going to start having their own children. So.
Right.
And they could have done that a long time ago. She did do a good job there. I have to give her credit for that. My kids are not irresponsible. My kids are good kids. The judge in this case, I mean, you're going to love this, Robert. I'm being extradited for contempt of court, but the extradition law is the extradition law on the family court statutes, Virginia Statute 20-84. 20-84 says you can extradite somebody who's guilty of non-support. Okay? The non-support law, which is Virginia Title 20-61, says you're guilty of non-support if you don't pay child support for your children under the age of 18. Okay?
Right.
My youngest turned 18 in 2005. Okay? But they're using the extradition law for failure to pay support. They're using the family court extradition rule to extradite me for contempt of court. The two things aren't even connected. I mean, they are cobbling together laws to violate my rights and to get me there. So they gave me what's called personal jurisdiction.
I remember calling, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but I remember calling up the police down in Virginia Beach because I hadn't heard from you in a while, or I just remember I was trying to get in touch with them, I couldn't, and I just called them up and asked them if you had actually been arrested, and they said, "Oh yeah, there's an extradition order on this guy." But wait a minute, and really, the woman actually said this. I recorded the phone call. I'm not going to put it on now, but the police officer that I was talking to, she actually said, "Wow, this guy's under an extradition order, and it's a misdemeanor charge. How the hell does that work out?" She actually said that on the phone to me.
What did she say to you, Robert? Would you repeat that a little more?
I'm going to repeat it again. She said, "Wait a minute. This guy is under an extradition order, but there's no felony here. I wonder how that is." It was just kind of like, as she was. This is some clerk. This is some police clerk or whatever. Yeah, somebody's like sitting behind a computer screen. So wait a minute, this guy's got an extradition order, but there's no felony here. And she just said, "I wonder how that worked out. I wonder how that happened," as if she had never seen anything like that before. It was remarkable.
Yeah. Well, here's how they produce that. on the extradition paperwork, and the detective that I spoke with over the phone, when they tried to arrest me for extradition out in Seattle, I wasn't home. Okay, and I got a phone call saying the police were here, and I left and I stopped living at home that night. But there was a King County detective that was trying to hunt me down and find me, and I spoke with him on the phone several times, and he actually read me the extradition paperwork, and the extradition paperwork says that I was physically present in the Commonwealth of Virginia and that I committed a felony crime there.
Right.
That I committed a crime of non-support. But I'm being extradited for contempt. So they lied and fabricated, falsified evidence in order to obtain a governor's warrant. And the best part about that is I've contacted my congressman and my state representatives in Washington. And the federal congressman says, oh, this is a state's problem. And the state representatives say, well, this is extradition and child support. This is a federal issue. And so they all pass the buck.
Yeah, yep.
So there's no accountability. There's no accountability. The judge is going to claim judicial immunity, right? And it's like you can't. And this is what needs to change, man. Is we have to start holding public officials accountable. There is no judicial immunity if the judge is doing something that they know is wrong, right? It's called errors of omission is the legal phrase for it. And if you know that what you're doing is wrong, right, you're guilty. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Right? There's no immunity for blatantly doing wrong. And so this judge has probably handled 10,000 child support cases, right? So there's no way she thinks that I'm guilty of non-support, right?
Right. And you paid
because my kids are 28.
Right. You paid over $250,000 in child support in your life to these two children.
Yeah.
Basically. Right.
Yeah, I paid a lot. It's been expensive, but I signed an agreement saying, part of the divorce decree said that I would help get them through college, right? That's what I did, and that's what we did. But there's a lot of things that are just broken in this case where we've got judges connecting laws that don't connect and producing evidence. They all certify and swear on their graves that they're reliable and trustworthy, in order to produce a governor's warrant. There's what this is all based on is there's actually a mistake. The consent order that I got into in 2004. It was poorly crafted. And basically something was copied and pasted, right? And the meaning, because of where it was inserted it was inserted twice into the document, and the second insertion of a particular clause is the problem. So basically somebody with fumble fingers did a poor job drafting the document, right, in 2004, and you come back and look at it 10 years later, and you could interpret it either way. And I can talk to that a little bit. What I'm talking about is in 2004, prior to 2004, we were operating on a divorce decree, okay? And I was paying $1,600 a month for my two kids, and they were 17 and 18 at that time, okay? In 2004, they extradited me and got me in jail the same exact way they tried this time, right? So there's history here. This is the modus operandi. In 2004, they got me to Virginia. I was in jail, incarcerated, and forced to sign a new consent order to put my kids through college. The trade was, I cashed out, I had some arrears, I cashed out at $40,000 on that, and the agreement was then we reduced the child support to $1,000 a month from the $1,600, right? And there's a clause in there that says, if I don't pay the $40,000 cash settlements, within 60 days, then the whole thing is null and void, and we stay on the $1,600 deal. That's what this clause says. Well, my ex-wife is and her attorney are misreading that clause and trying to say the whole consent, or 10 years later, the consent order is invalid because I was late on some of those $1,000 payments, and we revert back to the divorce decree, to the $1,600 a month. So that's the differential. $1,600 a month for 5 years, right, versus $1,000 a month for 5 years. And then you put some interest, put 10 years worth of interest on top of that, and it looks like $125,000. So these people are greedy, right? My ex-wife is greedy. She's a greedy little biatch. Yeah, that looks like money. And attorneys, they're on contingency a lot of times, so, he's probably thinking he's going to get a third or a quarter or something like that, right? But the problem is they are misinterpreting this clause. This clause said, if I didn't pay the $40,000 cash settlement, then I don't get the discounted monthly, right? I don't get the discount from $1,600 down to $1,000. That's what this clause says, and they're misreading it. That's what the whole argument's going to be about. And another thing that Sage started talking about was, leadership. And I started out talking about character assassination. The place I'm at in life, man, it's like I had to give up my home in Auburn, right? And I had to go kind of on the down low. And I've been basically hiding out from this extradition thing because I'm not a fugitive in my mind. I am avoiding I'm a fugitive from injustice, but this thing has completely changed my life. I've been running scared for the last 2 months, right? I have been in a panic. I've been worried that I'm going to get pulled over driving a truck in Kentucky or some other place somewhere on the planet, and I'm going to end up being extradited anyway, right? It's cost me my relationship with my brother and sisters. They think that they don't understand the complexities here, and they're under the impression that I'm a fugitive and I fled and I'm avoiding my responsibilities, and that I even owe the money. I'm not in a position to support my mother, who is aging, and I've been paying a percentage of her monthly expenses. She's on a fixed income. I've lost 3 jobs this year, and I make a little over in the low 6 figures, generally. I've had 3 jobs this year that I've been fired from because of this. And I'm on the edge of being unemployable because I'm 52, and there's police records and petitions and bench warrants and all kinds of shit out there for me with my name on it. And so they've done their best to assassinate my character and to, make my life difficult. My marriage is falling apart as a result of this. I haven't seen my wife for nearly a week. We went in different directions about a week ago. So, and that's when I changed my mind about going to court. I decided, they cannot take my dignity, right? They cannot destroy my life. They cannot destroy my family. They cannot destroy the people that are near and dear to me and important to me. And they cannot do this to me. It is wrong. And then I'm going to fight it. I'm going to stand up for it and stand up against them. And I'll do it on my own if I have to. Fortunately, I had $3,500 hanging around. I hired an attorney with it. Still there?
Robert, you still with us?
Sorry, I
think
muted my
Robert
microphone.
dropped out.
I'm here. I'm sorry, I had my microphone muted. What do you think is going to happen on Thursday? Or let me put it this way: what do you hope is going to happen on Thursday, and what do you think is going to happen on Thursday?
I don't know what's going to happen exactly, but I know what should happen, and what should happen is what I'm hoping for. What I hope will happen on Thursday in court is the fugitive from justice and extradition, governor's warrant for extradition, goes away. My attorney said that one's solved because I'm effectively showing up in court, putting in an appearance, and so they can't extradite me. He says, so that basically just gets erased.
Right.
Okay? When it comes to contempt of court, I've read up on contempt, and there's civil contempt and criminal contempt. But in either case, when you resolve or fix the problem that causes the contempt, then the contempt goes away. Right?
Right.
In my case, the contempt was failure to pay child support. So my child support's been paid for like 3 months. It's been paid off for 3 months. So I think that the contempt charges go away. And so that pretty much makes all of, the legal things disappear. And then the other thing that's still out there is, my ex-wife is laying claim to $125,000 by misinterpreting a poorly written document.
Right.
And I think it would be practically impossible to say, well, it's, even though the contract's a bad contract, you're still, or it's not even a bad contract. It is ambiguous. But it's pretty clear what we make. We actually discussed this in the judges' chambers in 2004 when we signed it. And I'm a smart guy. I would never sign a clause that says if you're 1 day late on a payment, you owe $125,000.
Sure.
I would never sign that.
Sure.
I'm not an idiot.
Of course not. Yeah. Right.
So I think what's going to happen there, I think the judge is going to look at it and say, it's a chicken or the egg thing. We don't know which one came first. It's not really a dependent clause, and you can actually see that it's been pasted into the document. And so which one got pasted in first? The first time it appears or the second time it appears? And so that makes it a chicken and the egg thing. And I think that that the judge has to say that it's indeterminate, and therefore none of it applies, and we're done. And case closed, and your child support's paid, and let's close the case.
James, it is now almost 20 after 10. Let's do a music break and see if we can get some callers to call in. If you could give the call number again.
Yeah, we can do that. Give me just a second here. Call-in number is 214-272-0408. And here we go. All right, folks, we are back, and I'm going to go ahead and give out that number one more time. That number is 214-272-0408.
Folks, please call in. We got a great guest right here. I think that both of our guests tonight represent landmark happenings in the men's rights movement. We have somebody from the higher education angle of things and what's going on there, and now we have somebody, and this is really, I think this is at the base of so many problems that men face today, is the family court system and just the way fathers are treated. This idea that, that this thing that's been happening over the past 4 decades, where if you're a dad, you don't get to be a dad, and if you're a dad, you're just basically a sperm donor turned ATM machine. And in this case, a sperm donor turned into a serious deep weld ATM machine. But Greg Patnude is back with us today. Greg, you wanted to talk about a couple of things while we were on break. We were talking about some things that you wanted to talk about. There were two of them. One of them was the fact that there were hearings going on in court that you were not even aware of, that you were not served with information about, which is a serious breach of basic constitutional rights. And what was the other one again? If you could articulate that. I'm sorry, I'm at a loss for words for.
Well, there's actually a couple of important topics, I think. The first one, let's start with the second one first, okay?
Sure.
They've held since 2006. The last time I appeared in court in Virginia was 2006. Okay?
Right.
And now there's legal documents that say that after that, I was physically present in the Commonwealth of Virginia and committed the crime of failure to pay support, and it's a felony. And that's 2008, 2009, and I was not there. I was never served on.
Right. And
they've had 10 or 11 different judicial hearings, all in front of the same judge with my ex-wife, that I've had absolutely no knowledge of. There's been 10 or 11 of these things. I knew of one hearing, and I actually filed a motion. I wrote it myself, but it wasn't taken seriously and it wasn't treated as a motion because I didn't have an attorney, and I didn't show up. All right. So what they're doing is it goes to character assassination and how they build a case against you. Okay, they're trying to fabricate a case against me and make me look really bad because there's all these court hearings and that have now been listed in front of me, and they're being used as evidence against me. That the judge did this, the judge did that, this was signed, and it ends up saying. The arrears as calculated by the Division of Child Support Enforcement is incorrect as it provides credits for incentives provided for in the agreement that the respondent never earned.
Right.
The correct arrears is in this attachment. So basically they assassinated my character and saying the fix is $125,000.
Right.
And they're questioning, and they're saying that the Child Support Agency, which is the agency of record for any monies owed, once they start the collection process, that's the dollar amount you go by.
Right.
Right? So they're trying to get the state to basically have some sort of sliding scale. Hey, let's throw a few 1,000 on there, And, I mean, it's just, they're manipulating the system in ways that you just would not believe. It's crazy.
Oh. Well, that is the system. The system is there to do exactly what they are doing. It's a tertiary manipulation thing, I think. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interject, but it's kind of making an editorial comment here. That's what's going on here. Is basically the entire system is set up to victimize people like you, who are high earners, so people who earn money, and they take the money, and this is what they do, and that's it. And they use these things to. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's a lot of money too, and it's federally subsidized to the tune of $4.1 billion a year.
Yeah.
Okay, this is big money. Okay.
Big money for lawyers.
The state of Virginia gets between $60 and $80 million per state. They get, and that basically pays the agency's budget. Right?
Oh,
that pays a lot of
people's
salaries.
jobs are on the line, dude. People's jobs. It's their job to turn you into a slave. That's what their job is, and they're using your children, who are now fully grown, to do this.
Yeah. And then, one of the other things I want to talk about was emasculation, and character assassination.
Yeah.
I perceive this as a really big issue.
Jesus Christ.
The deadbeat dad. I mean,
this whole idea of deadbeat dad,
Here's the problem. We said we're pussified. Every single one of us, every man or every father has been pussified by the system. And we sit back and we piss and moan about our problems and our child support and how bad it is, and it's not going to get any better, and the jail, it sucks, right? And we're pussified. We've been emasculated, right? I'm a warrior, okay? As a nation of men, we are all warriors, and we would be one hell of an army if we were organized and everybody stood up and fought this. But we've been pussified, we've been emasculated, we believe that we have to go get an attorney and that we're at the whim of the judge and what we can negotiate by the misandric courts, okay? It's time for people to stand up and stop bitching and do something. And I'm challenging every man out there to stand up and do something for yourself. They can't take you if you comply, you're a pussy, and you're letting them run you, and you're letting them ruin your family and control your family. And I don't relinquish that control to anybody. And so I'm a little frustrated, And another thing that goes with that is, as groups of men trying to change the system, we're totally disconnected from each other, right? On Facebook alone, as I was doing research a few months ago, I found like 80 different men's groups for men's rights. Children of, men with children to pay support, child support reform for this, child support for that, and they're all disconnected. We need some solidarity here, guys. We need to all be on the same page, wearing the same set of shoes, and marching in the same direction. We need some leadership. And so I'm not sure if the thing that Sage is working on is the proper form for that, but this has got to change.
Well,
it's not every man for itself. It has to be every man for every other man if we're going to fix this broken system.
Absolutely, as a man, and it just kind of to kind of as kind of just to say in response to that, there is a growing men's rights movement, and there are certainly, and there should be, different areas of expertise. You have the family court system.
You don't need a men's rights movement. I don't think we need a men's rights movement. We already have the right.
Right.
I already have the inalienable right.
But we have to defend that.
I don't need a movement. I need action. And
yes,
I'm saying we don't need a movement. We need action.
Yes, there needs to be action. There needs to be activism, and this is an argument that I come across a lot with people about who should be the leader in the men's rights movement. I think that there should be, as far as activism is concerned, action. You're going to have a different assortment of people doing this, but also you're absolutely right in saying that there needs to be a conception or a cognition that we're all in this together. This is not, and this is not, it's so easy to point to paint that sentiment as being a collectivist attitude, but the fact is that we're all in the same house, and the house is on fucking fire, dude. It's on fire. I mean, it's not a good situation.
No, and I think, honestly, I've thought about this at great length. I've had lots of time to reflect. I think that the architecture of the family court system has a lot to do with the problems. that the family court system is generating. Okay.
Yes.
Family courts are not courts of record. What that means is
there's no public accountability.
Yeah. There's no accountability. The judge across the hall can come up with identical cases. The judge across the hall in the other courtroom there can come up with a completely different conclusion for your family than he would for mine.
Right.
I think if child support is federally regulated and collection of child support is federally regulated and federally funded, I think that the family court systems should also be federally regulated. That would join them all together. They would have one set of standards, and the laws would apply equally to all men and women and all families.
And the lack of accountability and the lack of a non-record-based court is really a huge issue. When you have someone who has the power to take money and children from an individual, from that said individual, there must be strict accountability in accordance with the laws and the values of this country. We have this thing called the Bill of Rights. You can't take something away from somebody without due process. You can't do it. All right? There must be some there must be some judicial review. There must be an appellate process. And we're talking about family court, where it's not just people's rights, whether or not you get arrested or something like that, or whether or not someone, shaves away like a quarter acre of your property. No, we're talking about taking away people's kids and like half of everything they've earned for their entire fucking life and putting a lien on them for the rest of their life. That's what we're talking about here. It's that bad.
Well, that's what I'm looking at.
You're facing jail for crying out loud.
I'm looking at a year in jail. It's complete. It's my. There's a good chance that my marriage is shot. Right. Just from the pressure. I'm not meeting my obligation to my mother with her financial needs. I'm basically unemployable.
You have no money.
These people have stolen and turned my entire life upside down. Upside down. Yeah. And I'm not going to have it anymore. And if the judge says, too bad, so sad, I'll just tell her to lock me up. I'm not playing. And I'm prepared to do that. And say, you know what? I'm not playing this game with you.
James,
it's been really frustrating. It's been really a real hardship, especially when I'm in my career. I'm 52.
You're in your mid-50s. What the hell? You're not a young spring chicken that can bounce back from this shit. This is it. This is it for you.
Yeah, and my employment opportunities are changing partly because of my age and the age group that I'm competing with.
Yeah.
Right, in the job market. So employment for me is getting more and more difficult. I saw the same pattern happen with my father as he got closer and closer to retirement. My ex-wife, you're gonna love this. My ex-wife, I was arrested on March 18th. I was held in jail for 2 weeks before I was released. And as a result of being detained for 2 weeks, I lost my job. That was the first job I lost this year. The day after I got out, it was April 2nd, I called my ex-wife. I said, I've got most of the money. I can have it to you in a week. Do you want to settle up? And at the time, it was like $17,000. Right?
Yeah.
And she said, no, I'm doing this because I don't have enough money for retirement. She actually said that to me.
Exactly. Yep.
Well, the truth is, Robert, I've been living in an apartment since I got divorced. I've never had the financial resources to buy my own house.
You don't have a retirement.
I've got $300. I've got basically $500 to my name. Okay, and all my bills are due. And I'm going to court on Thursday to see if I go to jail for a year or not. So that's kind of where the place they brought me to, this whole process. I'm not happy with it.
James, can you give a shout out for the number again before we do have a little bit more time in the show tonight? It'd be great if we get some callers in. I know people are listening. So if you could just shout out the number one more time and maybe go to a quick music break so we can get some callers.
Sure. The number is 214-272-0408. 214-272-0408.
And we're back on the O'Hara News and Editorial, and we are joined, of course, by our guest, Mr. Greg Patnude, James Huff, and now we have a caller. Danny boy, how are you doing, brother?
I'm not doing too bad there, Robert. James, how you doing there, Greg?
Good stuff, Danny.
Pardon?
I said I'm doing good, Danny. How are you?
Not too bad. I'm hearing about your fight there over the radio here. And you talked about we already have our rights. You're absolutely right. We need to use the term invoke. Okay, we can't be going for the courts and asking them permission for our rights. Okay, so when we go in, we're put up in those courts. The words we want to use is invoke our rights.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Oh, yeah. This is not something that the courts grant me. These are inalienable. This is not something the courts that the court grants or can take away from me. My rights, your rights, every man's rights. These were given. These were inalienable, and they were granted to you. And I think that's what you're reinforcing. I think. Is that correct? Am I getting the right message here?
Yeah. Well, when if you use legalese and English is not the same shit. Okay, there's a little difference in there. So by using the term invoke, you're forcing them to honor those rights.
Right.
Right. So yeah,
I'm not
right. We got to learn their language. We can't rely on the fucking lawyers to tell us the truth. They're in it for the money, for the most part. There are some good ones out there, but there's a lot of them in it for the money, as as your case illustrates there with your ex.
Yeah, well, the thing about attorneys is my attorney's a really good attorney. He's a great guy, and he's a really good friend of mine, too. I mean, I've known him for 10 years. And part of the problem is he actually sent this to me in 2004. I was basically locked up and held hostage for $40,000 settlement under almost the same conditions in 2004. So they're kind of trying to repeat that, and extract more cash from the bank of Greg. Problem is Greg doesn't have it and doesn't owe it. Not this time. 10 years ago, I did have an arrears balance. But my attorney said to me at the time, he said, Greg, I'm sorry, I did the best I could, but my hands are tied. They've got this system here that that works the way they work it, and I have to earn a living here. I have to live here and support my family. So even my attorney's hands are tied to some degree.
Yeah. Like I said, there are some good ones. There are some good ones out there, but there's a lot of them out there who, they're in it for the money. I can think of one up in Brantford, Ontario area there who does, paternity and divorce court, and then scavenges off the fucking the carnage he creates and does real estate as well.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, there are some nasty ones out there. I've experienced it. Yeah, man, I wish you all the best in your battle. Go find your peace tomorrow, and best of luck, man. And I hope you come out on the other side doing well.
Well, thanks, Danny.
Cheers, guys. I got to go and call for myself.
I'm giving my best shot,
Yeah, it sounds like it. I'm calling from Canada, so cheers, guys. I'm going to get going. It's cost me an arm and a leg on the show. All right,
sure,
bye for now.
Thanks for calling in. Danny is our Canadian news director. He's also a very important member of the ABFM community. I'm really glad that he called in. We were just talking about lawyers. I wanted to share with everybody an anecdote, and I think this is important. Well, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But I had just got off work one night about a month ago, and I went to this place where I hang out a lot. It's a dive bar, and I ordered beer. I started talking with this younger woman next to me who was just finishing up her law degree, and she said that she told me this was a real conversation. She said that she was interested in getting into family law because of what happened to her dad. She said, my dad got screwed over by my mom. I never really saw my dad when I was growing up. And as I grew older, I understood it was all about, basically my mom didn't want to have me to have any relationship with my dad at all. And my mom actually profited from this whole thing. She got all this child support money and some alimony and all this. And she was unable to do all these terrible things to my dad. So I was inspired to get into the legal profession. But then, after I realized how much money I could make off of the human misery, she actually said this to me. She said, when I realized how much money I could make off of basically separating children from their parents, I decided to continue working to become a family lawyer in order to do all that. She actually said that to me. I didn't tell her I was the news director for A Voice for Men, but this is just how cynical these people are. It's just how the cynicism. This is a true story. I'm telling you, she actually said this. This is just how cynical these people are.
The motivation is a 4-letter word.
Yeah.
Actually, 5-letter word. I'm sorry. The motivation here is a 5-letter word. It's greed.
Yep.
On the part of the attorneys, on the part of the, if I'm drinking, I can basically get a free paycheck. I get free money.
Yeah.
Right?
Family court officials, judges. It's the lower level bureaucrats that understand that their jobs rely on this corrupt system, and they understand this fully. They have no illusions. These people are not stupid. And there's armies of these people who do this. Armies of them.
Yeah. Yeah, I think from a men's rights perspective, we all need to march in unison. And, this stuff seems to always fail for some reason. There's some sort of social, I don't know what it is. With men, it's like we're warriors and we will fight each other before we will fight together. But when we fight together, we will win.
Right.
And this happened, about 20 years ago. If you remember the Million Man March in Washington D.C., and it was,
right.
It was primarily the Black American population was involved with the Million Man March. It was like maybe 100,000 people showed up. It was a big failure, right? We're doing the same thing, and this is not racially bound. I mean, just
nor is it religious or anything like that.
White Americans, Hispanic Americans, people of all color get divorced and have kids and end up in family court. It crosses all barriers and all colors. This ain't about the color of your skin or, how well hung you are. This is about walking together, guys. We need to march as one army and stand together and not be emasculated anymore. Right? They've taken everything from me. I have nothing left. I have $500 to my name. I've lost my wife, my family, my jobs. They practically got my self-respect and my dignity. It's been really, really painful since March of this year. And this thing just reared up its ugly head out of nowhere. It turns out that, my ex-wife has been setting this up for like 6 years.
For a long time, yeah.
So,
because she can.
Yeah, and
the system enables her to do this. Actively enables
What kind of pathetic person hates on someone else like that,
Well, someone who's unable to do so. There's a system in place that actively encourages people like your ex to do what they do. It's not just her, it's this whole legal system.
Well,
that's designed
here's the dichotomy. There's a really huge dichotomy in this. I have 3 sisters. 2 of them have been divorced for, 10 or 12 years each, and they ended up raising their kids as single moms. One of them had 2 boys, the other one had 3 boys. My sisters never got one thin dime of child support from their children's father,
right?
Either of them, right? And these guys have been in the system for years, and they've got huge child support bills in the $100,000 in arrears, shit like that.
Right.
And where was this system when my sisters needed help?
Right.
Right. And then me, I've paid $241,000 in child support over time. My kids have college degrees, and they're trying to take more from me.
Yeah.
The system is just so far out of balance.
What it is your sisters are not sociopaths. Your ex is, and the system is it's a system of sociopaths set up for sociopaths. It's a sociopathic system that was set up by and for sociopaths. That's what the system is. And
well, that's a scary thought.
Well, it's the truth. It's the truth. We're talking about familial relations being shred to pieces. We're talking about people becoming wage slaves. We're talking about someone like you, who's a 52-year-old man, who's going to go to jail for a year because someone said that he's in child support arrears. Yeah. Because you're not going to pay $130,000 for children that are fully grown, even though you can document that you have paid all of your child support money.
Yeah, it's on the DCSC, the agency. Their record shows a $0 balance on child support and $0 balance on the arrears. So yeah, I'm clean. I'm cleaned up with these people, and I hope I'm done because I really don't want to give up a year of my life you know, that would be the icing on the cake. You know, now that I've lost 3 jobs and everything that's near and dear to me, it would be icing on the cake to take a year out of my life. You know. But I'm being optimistic. My plan is, you know, I'm close enough to where I can be in Virginia Beach in an hour's drive, and I've got court at 8:30 on Thursday morning. In the meantime, I'm going to hang out in the Outer Banks, I think, and meditate on the beach. You know, try to find a place where that guarantees that I retain my sanity and my dignity and my self-respect.
Greg, it's 11. I'm sorry, it's 10:53 right now. I think now's a good time to end the show. Thank you so much for calling in.
Hey, it's good fun.
Absolutely. And listen, I know that things are bad for you right now.
Yeah.
And they could get much worse. But just remember, man,
Not
you know.
really.
Well, just remember.
There's nothing left to take other than a year of my life.
Well, I'll tell you what,
that's all I got left.
Well, no, you got people. You got people thinking about you. Some people are praying about you.
Yeah, I know.
And you know what? And guess what? You're part of something now. This is really, really important. And you're someone who's going to be talked about. And no matter what happens, we can't promise that we can come bust you out of jail or anything like that. But you know, this is something that's coming to the forefront, and you're helping it happen. And there are people who are behind you. So just keep that in mind always.
I appreciate that, Robert, and I appreciate it feels good to know that there's an organization out here that, you know, is trying to move these issues forward and give them some visibility. And, you know, I have every intention of being part of that. If I need to be the poster boy here, you know, if people need somebody to march behind, to fight back, you know, then I'll be the guide on.
We will definitely.
The guide on is the guy that holds. If you weren't in the military, the guide on is the guy in the front right corner when you're marching in rank that carries the flag. He carries the marker flag that everybody lines up on. That's what the guide on is.
We're going to be following your lead.
Thank you, Robert.
Sure. Thanks a lot, too. Thank you so much for coming on the show. And listen, we're going to be praying for you the entire time. We'll talk. Hopefully, we'll talk before your court date. But seriously, tomorrow, enjoy yourself, man. Tomorrow is your day. So just do that. Yeah, man. Awesome. So I'm jealous. I wish I could be down there with you, man. Anyway, thanks so much for calling in. James, do we have any advice for our listeners before we sign out?
Absolutely. Take the red pill.